Okay, you're with us here on Midcap Radar. I'm Prashant. With me is my colleague Reema Tendulkar. Pawan Goenka is addressing the addressing the press on the Mahindra and Mahindra results. Numbers, of course, came in earlier. Let's listen in for a quick bit.
Concern that we have, and even if you look at the cash flow, the cash collection has been very good in the quarter. So overall, I would say that it's been a quarter better than what we thought it would be, given the circumstances that we are in. So I will request now Rajesh to walk you through the operational details, Anish for financial details, and we'll come back to Q&A. Rajesh?
Yes. Thank you, Pawan. I'll just wait for the slide to come up. Good afternoon, everyone. While we are waiting for the slide to come up, I'm just going to use a few slides to give you a quick perspective so that we have enough time to take questions from you. So just make a very short presentation. Can you get started, Vinny, to the next slide, please? The next. So this is just a recap of where we had left with in the media press interaction the last time. And we'd walk through the walk, run, and fly as a philosophy and a way in which we were looking at the business. What I would do now is give you a quick update on areas which there has been progress on. Can you move on, Vinny? So basically in the area of walk, as Pawan mentioned, Vinny, we have had a significant improvement in management of our core working capital and capex optimization. We've improved our net variable margin, and through a stringent cost management, we've brought down our costs quite significantly in the quarter compared to the same period last year.
Okay, we will go back to that press conference when the Q&A starts and the management starts taking questions. Well, the market is not doing very much. It's down about 8 points. We also will go across to the management of Lupin to talk about the numbers which have come through. Reema, afternoon.
Hi, afternoon. I think numbers from Emami too were flashing on your screen, so we'll try and get that up for you. I think I saw revenues have come down. The expectation was close to about a 30% drop in their revenues in the back of the fact that the company does not have adequate portfolio of essential products, which are the ones which did well. So Emami was expected to be the worst hit in the portfolio, at least in the FMCG basket. So we'll await numbers from Emami. But for the markets per se, pretty sideways for the benchmark indices. So as you call it, blinking red and green for the benchmark indices. Midcaps is where the action was, but the midcap index too has tapered a tad bit. I think we'll be chatting with the management of Lupin soon. That stock is down 6%. Is down close to about 6% odd. The problem for Lupin this time around is the weak United States sales, which declined by 21%. Nilesh, Gupta, the MD, and Ramesh Swaminathan, the CFO of the company, now join in. Nilesh, let me start with you. There was a decline across region. What was the key reason, and particularly if you could throw some more light on the United States? What was the impact, say, of the Metmorphin recall, the Solosec sales?
As you know, we had guided to a tough quarter, tough Q1 on count of COVID. And as expected, we saw the impact in the market across really all our regions. To be honest, the only business that actually outperformed was our API business. Specifically, both US and India were impacted. As you know, we usually do 180, 190 million in the US. In Q4, we actually did 205 million. And that was, COVID-related stockpiling that went into that as well. And coming into Q1, demand contracted by 12% versus the sequential quarter. And that obviously resulted in a significant reduction. Coupled with that was the seasonality. The flu products dropped off considerably. Products like Tamiflu, products like azithromycin even, and the cephalosporins. And the third contributing factor was metformin. As you know, we had the recall, and we basically had no revenues for metformin in Q1. These three together resulted in that 180 odd million coming down to 150 odd million. So there was a 30 million odd gap which got created, and very quickly we see that reversing significantly in Q2. We see the demand has already started picking up. We see the acute scripts also improving in the US towards the, there were supply disruptions also. Those two we believe we will be able to address in Q2. We see a ramp up in levothyroxine, and we see customers starting their winter purchase by the end of the quarter as well, which will then mean a lift off for products like azithromycin, oseltamivir, the cephalosporins as well. Importantly, we expect Glumetza to get back into the market basically by next month. We believe that we have a near-term fix which is adequate to inspire confidence in the product. The product was pulled from the market as abundant caution on the NDMA issue, but we believe that we have addressed it and we want to bring it back to the market next month. And lastly, obviously, albuterol. We talked about earlier an H2 launch. Then we said we likely will have this as sooner than that. We're keeping our fingers crossed. Hopefully, still within this quarter, we hope to be able to launch albuterol. Same way in India, just like the US, same way in India, we saw the decline. I think that was really across the industry as well. So you saw the industry declining. We degrew 5.8% year on year as well, primarily on the back of the acute products. Usually Q1 is a stronger quarter and Q2 is weaker. We actually see that Q2 will this time around be stronger than Q1. So we'll have sequential growth in the India region. So again, that will go back to a stronger Q2 for the India region as well. So we do see a bounce back in Q2 itself. I think we had a stronger story which is coming out of Q4. Q1 obviously COVID played spoil sport, but I think in Q2 we should be able to get things back on track. It's not going to be perfect. I still think that I think obviously we're still living with COVID very deep in our midst, but it'll be a much stronger quarter.
Nilesh, you spoke about FY21 being a growth year, but what will drive growth for the company from here on? Will segments and geographies, which segments and geographies will contribute to this sort of extra growth you're talking about this year?
I think individual products will drive the near-term growth. So, products like levothyroxine ramping up, products like albuterol, these are the products that will drive growth in the near term. The API business, I think this is a sunshine opportunity for that sector. We said that, last quarter as well. And I think government is trying to move in that direction as well. This is, I think there's part of the battle that the API sector lost in the course of the last few years. This is an opportunity to regain it. I don't think that means an indiscriminate investment into APIs, but cherry picking for the right opportunities to be more vertically integrated, to invest into certain products as well. I think that is the order of the day. And that's how we're looking at it as well. So a couple of products. So, for example, we are obviously very meaningful in the anti-TB products. This is a chance to fortify that position much better. And similarly, there are other classes of products as well. That is our approach on the API. And I think this is, again, a great opportunity for India.
Ramesh, Nilesh was talking about the API business and how it's an opportunity. Can you throw some more color on your plans with respect to the government's PLI scheme? How much would you be looking to invest?
No, we have been looking at that and reviewing our own situation. It's still early. I personally don't believe that the incentives are very lucrative at this stage. But we're still talking to the government, and we'll take a call on it, in due course.
Nilesh, coming back to you, could you tell us what is the update on remediation of the Goa, Pithampur, Mandideep, Somerset, Tarapur facilities, and what is the chance of desktop audits taking place by the US FDA?
I think the FDA has actually pretty much made it clear that there is no desktop audit as such. The FDA does rely on document review. The FDA does rely on mutual recognition as well. They've made that abundantly clear. So I think while we're pushing the envelope and we really are going to try and work with the FDA to come up with alternative means to address OAI sites, today there is no set procedure to do it. But I think it'll come. I think the reality is that COVID is not going anywhere. It's going to be here for the next 3-6 months. And if that is, then travel is not going to happen. Supply disruptions will happen. So those challenges are going to keep coming up. So I think we are aligned with FDA in terms of trying to come up with a solution that does not compromise expectations, but still meets the needs of the needs of the market. But I think we're going to have to work with the FDA. There is no desktop audit as such, at least from US FDA. Some of the other agencies, WHO, for example, TGA, for example, are engaging in alternative means such as remote audits, relying on other regulator audits as well. And I think that could be one way of for FDA as well. But I think that's only going to come out after they give clarity on how they would approach it.
Ramesh, I can see that your margins have fallen quite a bit. From over 19% a year ago, it's now down to 13.8%. We understand that this was a weak quarter, but what can you guide on margins going ahead?
On the margins front, we were talking about the fact that things would normalize hugely when it comes to America. We do expect to get back to the $180 to $190 million sales and things picking up in other parts of the globe, including India. We do think gross margins also sustaining. We'll be able to get to a very decent level. We do expect, of course, expenses. So the first quarter also saw one-time expenditure in terms of rationalization of the sales force in America. There was higher expenses in terms of freight and the like. Some parts of it will certainly continue. In Q1, again, there was a huge decline in terms of SG&A expenses, consulting fees, sales promotion expenses. So all of this actually did contribute tremendously to the bottom line, but there would be some levels of normalization there. At the beginning of the year, I said that we would be perhaps about 19 to 20%, but that was not taking into account the COVID situation, and that was a caveat that I added to all that I spoke to you about. But given the fact that we are where we are in Q1, I think we should be able to get to a EBITDA margin without taking into account the forex or other income, close to about 17%.
Okay, so that is Lupin's commentary. Ramesh and Nilesh, thanks very much, both of you, for joining us and running us through what you see as far as outlook going forward goes. There are flashes at the bottom of the screen. So yesterday, as part of the RBI forbearance, which came through as part of the policy, they had announced that there was a committee which is going to be set up under the leadership of Mr. K.V. Kamath. And now the RBI is releasing names of the committee, names of the members of the K.V. Kamath committee. So Ashwin Parekh is part of the committee. So that's he's going to be a strategy advisor on the debt recast panel. Remember, any loan which is greater than 1,500 crores in value goes to the Kamath committee for its approval. So, I mean, it's been widely welcomed as sort of being done under the sort of aegis of a veteran banker, that is Mr. Kamath. And now we are getting to know that people like Ashwin Parekh, Canara Bank's T.N. Manoharan are also going to be part of the debt recast expert panel. So that's information which is coming in right now. The Indian Banks Association CEO to be a member secretary of the debt recast panel. We'll put up all the names in just a bit and try and get you some more perspective as well. We'll try and speak to some of these people as well. Former SBI CFO Diwakar Gupta is also going to be on the debt recast panel, which is being set up at this point in time. So this is the information which is coming in. So some former bankers, some current bankers, the CEO of IBA, consultants like Ashwin Parekh, and some more. So that's the K.V. Kamath committee on debt recast, which has been set up. All right, we'll take a very quick break here. We come back and we speak with Mr. Rajkiran Rai. He's the Managing Director and CEO at Union Bank. He joins us on the other side in just a bit.